Plague of Shadows is an excellent alternate mode in Shovel Knight. Today, I want to bend the rules a bit and find out if we can beat it without using the regular bombs. You may be asking, what do they even do? Well, they're your main attack. They stall you in the air for a bit, and they are a great option in this game, being your main damage dealer. Not having this will absolutely suck. As you see in the intro cutscene, the minions throw a bomb before the charge of the bomb burst. So how do we get through the tall wall? Jumping doesn't help, as you just saw, not even using the bombs. Nothing. But you can hold Y during the intro cutscene, letting you charge up before you even get to start playing, which will let you have one bomb burst. This fact alone made me even consider the run, and this is absolutely crucial for the challenge. Always hold Y before a level starts. You can always hold Y after a bomb burst without throwing a regular bomb, which is the only other reason this is possible, as while having one bomb burst is great, having several is better. The intro stage isn't really that bad. For the mini bosses, double jump and bomb burst over, or damage boost. For the section with the skeleton and spikes, kill the skeleton by baiting it into the spikes, or going over it outright and then killing it. For the section with the slimes and the gap, bait the slimes away from the gap and bomb burst them until they die. Black Knight is a snooze fest, as you can only damage him with the bomb burst. Just keep doing this until he dies, and it should be a pretty easy win. Before we move on to the next stage, if you have the cash, get the float burst. It has floatier jumps, allowing for more air precision, but you can only use one burst at a time in the air, which limits movement, and the float is slow horizontally, which kills momentum. So overall, I wouldn't say it's that great, but if you want to use it, go ahead. Moving on to King Knight, we want to instantly try to find the relic. So, get to the secret area and try to get to there. It's gonna take a lot of smart platforming, and you might want to get the cipher coins along the way. Just make sure you're careful with platforming and it should be good. Like with right here, I really don't have to worry about much, as my height alone basically just makes this section a freebie. Getting over to the area with the relic's pretty easy. All you really have to do is just find the chest and you get the flare wand. But we're not using the relics, we want to use them for something else. We trade the relic to Chester in order to get the big boom, or the big bomb as I call it. It is really good, and is not performed with the base bomb input. It's performed with up and Y, so it is not a regular bomb. What it does is that it just makes a big bomb. We are going to want to use this, as it's a big way to get damage increasing, so your damage output is way better than usual. Also, if you mess up the burst timing, you can use up Y to get the Arcana, or fail it if you don't have enough, and then you can recharge your burst that way without using the regular bomb. For the section with the books, it's pretty easy due to the amount of movement that Plague Knight has by himself, so the difficulty of it doesn't really change. Just be careful, time your jumps right, and you should make it perfectly unscathed. The mini bosses are incredibly easy to cheese. Just jump over them and you won't get attacked, especially the second one, but the first one's pretty easy as well. Just make sure you jump over them and you'll be perfectly fine. King Knight himself isn't too bad, just you have to get really close with him with the big bombs and the burst bomb. Just make sure that you keep your HP in check and you will win this no problem. The first section of getting the relic is insane. All of those frogs do splash damage as they bounce up, so you want to cycle the big bomb in order to kill them passively, or do what I did, which was pretty stupid, which was go up and burst the frogs. After that, you're gonna have to commit mass murder on a bunch of skeletons, and after that, you can get the phase locket, which, if you saw the thing with the flare wand, we're not using it. We're gonna trade it with Chester. The leech liquid is good if there's a boss we can burst stall, damaging enemies in a pitch, or getting more health. But the damage output is lowered heavily, so we're not gonna use this that often. At this point of the game, Spectre Knight is insanely difficult, especially when you start summoning enemies and when the screen becomes dark, making it hard to dodge attacks, especially with the limitations, even harder. And with our damage output, we have to get close, which is the exact opposite of what you want to do in this fight. But after a while, for me, which is about 20 minutes, you can beat him. Getting the first health potion is a godsend, especially for some of the later bosses in this challenge. Get another bar of Arcana if you can, but the bullet burst is the main thing that we get from here. The bullet burst shoots a bullet, making damage output way better, and we don't have to spend Arcana, which we can use on something else. It does limit movement a bit, having longer charge time, but it's just by the tiniest bit. Also, it does not have the splash damage that the normal burst does. Overall, it's very good, but in some situations, you don't want to use it. Immediately, that point gets across as we have to switch to the basic burst in order to destroy these platforms. The Staff of Surging I don't really know what to say about it. It gives a little bit of height, but the range is short, so you're not really going to use this unless you just want to. The mini boss is nothing special. We just shoot it until it dies. Shovel Knight is one of the easier bosses, especially if you have the bullet burst. All around, the stage is a haven for bursts. The water makes your fall speed slower, which gives you more airtime, and also lets you do more bursts in a single jump. So the platforming is super easy here. Worry about the stage itself, not the platforming. The mini boss shouldn't be terrible, but all you really have to do is just bullet burst spam until it dies. The vat area can be really annoying, but once you get it, it's more than worth it. It creates a platform allowing your airtime to be even longer. It's not really needed with the burst, but it can save a jump or two. I'd say if you're struggling with the platforming, which, why? You'll need this, but other than that, it's not really necessary. It's good for what it does, really good, but it's not versatile. Treasure Knight can be very annoying, especially this attack, because you have to use so many of your resources that you'll probably get hit in response. When you become patient and really learn his patterns, he's just another boss, and you won't have to worry about him for very long. Get the Frost Burst if possible. It gives an extra damage boost, but it's very tricky to use effectively, and like the Bullet Burst, it does not have the splash damage that the normal burst does. Use this sparingly if you can, but there should be times where it proves very useful. Plague Knight's movement makes this course way easier than normal, especially this part, and the next part with the bug is really simple, as you can just kinda ignore the bug for most of it, and just go at your own pace. If you can or want to, trade the Dust Knuckles that you get for the Smoke Bomb. The Smoke Bomb is actually pretty good. Giving invincibility, but it does have a limited use time and decreases damage output. If you're using the Smoke Bomb, use the Bullet Burst to go with it. The slime section was super annoying for me. It's not really bad, Just a combination of the long length between the checkpoints, and the fact that the lava does come back after a bit, makes it very, very annoying. Mole Knight himself isn't terrible. He could be super chaotic, but as long as you know what you're doing, and you have some health tonics to spare, you should be fine overall. After we get the next health potion, we immediately move on to Propeller Knight. The ice physics can suck, but it's not too bad. Getting the Warhorn to trade it for Chester is super annoying, and at the end, you need a very close double jump. What we do want to get though is the Berserker's Brew. It's very good if you know how to use it. The Berserker's Brew is actually pretty good. It gives more damage, has an easy to use effect, and having no knockback can be a blessing in some sections, so it has a little bonus effect as well. But damage still affects the player, which generally isn't wanted. It could be softened up with health tonics and other things like that, but it still sucks. It's not amazing by any means. I mean, the big bomb exists. That's just gonna outclass it no matter what. But it's situational, I'd say, and can prove very useful in a lot of parts of the game. Propeller Knight is essentially a damage race. Use your big bombs, bullet bursts, smoke bombs, whatever. Just make sure you outpace his damage, as a lot of his attacks will hit you. If you can, go by the Spin Burst. It gives more damage to the burst, being able to just spin through enemies. I think it doesn't have splash damage, but I never tested this thing, so you're gonna have to correct me on that. Overall, it's a pretty good buy, just it's gonna take a while and you may as well just use the normal burst. The Black Knight rematch is basically the same as the original fight. Just bullet burst him until he dies. Get the mobile gear to trade it to Chester to get the Fleet Flask. It shouldn't be too hard, just the platforming can be super annoying, especially with knockback. The Fleet Flask is really weird because it's great, you dash along the ground destroying small enemies along the way, but it's super hard to control, and if you bounce on a wall while you're in the air, you're practically dead. So while it can be useful if used right, I just never use it. It's not that good. The first phase, nothing happens. The attacks are easy to dodge. You can actually get hit here since nothing really happens. No risk. No, nothing. It's just super easy. The second phase is also surprisingly easy. All you really need to do is just loop him with the burst until he dies. Other than that, nothing much to say. Just Tinker Knight is really easy for the final area when Propeller Knight was one of the hardest we've seen. The hardest since Spectre Knight. Go get the Propeller Dagger. And this section here is actually pretty tricky. You're gonna want to be very careful. And especially this part right here. With the cannonballs and the little guys and all of that. That section's been really annoying. For me at least. What you really want to do is just kind of just wait until they come over and then you can just explode them with the big bomb. And then you finally get the special weapon. The Staff of Striking is way different than the other Arcanas we've gotten so far. It's a melee attack and it's very good at that range, but it has no range. It takes up a spot that the Big Bomb, Berserker's Brew, Leech Liquid, Smoke Bomb, or really anything else would really be useful for. So that's why you don't really want to use this thing. It's situational at best, but it's nothing great either. Propeller Knight shouldn't be terrible. For everything that you have, he's really right around King Knight difficulty when we first fought him. But the thing is that the bombs and the other things really make this as difficult as it is. It's nothing terrible, of course, I've already said that, but it's nowhere near easy and probably going to take a couple attempts in order to defeat and master. After that, we get the last health potion, so we have a lot more health going into the final areas. If you have the Cypher coins, go to the armor outpost. The knight shouldn't be too hard to kill, just use the bullet burst until they all die, and you win. Get the triple chalice, then go to the triple pond, and after a minute or so straight of him dancing, you basically just get new armors. The treasure trappings allow you to get more money, but at this point of the game, we don't really need it. Get it if you want to, but at this point, it's basically a waste. The goo garnet is actually pretty good. You bounce off walls while bursting. The bounces do damage and are invulnerable, so if there's a wall near you, you bounce off of it. You can create an infinite height trick if you have a wall, so generally this is a really good choice, but it's very hard to control, and don't use this on Propeller Knight stage. I learned that very, very well. The wardrobe is actually not that bad. You take less knockback when hit, but you cannot stop as easily, so you will slide a bit when you stop, which can be a killer in some sections. This is a lot more useful than it looks at first, but because we don't really take that much knockback, it's not that big of a deal. Get it if you can though, it can be a lifesaver. The dandy duds don't do anything, don't give you more speed, more attack, they give you nothing other than drip. And because of that, it's an absolute must. The entrance isn't too bad, you're just doing the same stuff that you did a couple stages ago and you're revisiting everything. For this section, use the bait bomb or the big bomb in order to find the fake platforms so you can go on the real ones. Black Knight actually isn't a snooze fest this time. He gets a major difficulty spike, and it's probably the hardest boss at this point of the game. After some time though, he's just another boss, and you'll make quick work of him. The Tower Ascent's auto-scroller is tricky, but as long as you know what you're doing, you should be fine. For the sake of the video, I'm not covering the boss rush as we've already fought all of them, so it would just be repeating points. But to give a quick summary, each boss is either just a tiny bit or a lot easier than their main counterparts. Everything should be easier, but some bosses are still tough no matter what, so you want to make sure to be ready. As we move on to the final level, this is actually pretty easy. But if there's one thing I want to say before we move on to the final bosses is that I found this run super fun. And I'm hoping that I can do it with a different playthrough, but knowing that, probably not possible.
A white boy who busts it down sexual style is not necessarily considered goated with the sauce.
That's what I've been saying, Tucker. It's crazy to me that they don't think he's goated with the sauce. You can see him on the yard right there, actually. He's busting it down sexual style, and they want to say he's not goated with the sauce. It's really despicable.
Moving on, the Enchantress can be super awkward to kill. Just use the smoke bomb and the bullet burst and you should be fine. The big bomb will break a lot of the ground, so that's why you don't want to use it. Right here, the smoke bomb is really good at just getting those tiny bits of invincibility out in order to dodge attacks. The Plague of Shadows is actually surprisingly tough. You're basically just fighting yourself. It shouldn't be anything too bad though. As long as you know what to do against Plague Knight in the Shovel Knight campaign, you will be perfectly fine. The Corrupted Essence is probably the hardest boss in the game, other than Black Knight. Personally, I go with the Bullet Burst and the Big Bomb just for maximum damage output, and while the attacks aren't too hard to dodge by themselves, all of them combined together can make this fight very, very difficult. Use your damage opportunities while you can, because you won't have them for very long. This fight took me a while, taking about like 15 minutes or so. All I know is that Spectre Knight first fight took the longest time out of all the bosses. But overall, this fight isn't terrible, you're just gonna have to rely on actually being good at the game. Thank you guys so much for watching. This challenge wasn't terrible overall, but some parts of it made me want to cancel the video idea. If you guys liked it enough, I'll consider doing the optional bosses, the Wandering Travelers. I'll make sure to do more challenges in the future if possible. I just want to do ones that are actually possible and aren't going to take like 10 years to complete. Anyways, I'll see you in the next boss ranking video, which is going to be Super Mario Odyssey. Hope to see you guys there.